After Atari's massive success with the 2600, everyone just wanted to know where the company would go from there. I am the Game Collector, and this is Second Opinion Games, and today we look at an Atari 5200 showcase.
Second Opinion Games.
We'll start things off with a little bit of Astro Chase to show off the graphical power of the 5200, and you can immediately tell this Earth you're trying to save as you fly a flying saucer around the planet trying to shoot down mega mines which can completely obliterate the planet if one of them happens to reach Earth. However, these mines are very slow moving, so chances are you're going to run out of lives long before that. You have quite a bit of energy, and if you get shot one time, you will explode and die. It takes a few levels before the aliens actually start shooting at you though, so you have plenty of times to get used to the controls. Now, one of the more awkward parts about this is you actually have to push in the direction you want to shoot, and because your flying saucer is quite fast, you might up inadvertently flying into the alien and blowing up. Also, keep in mind when you shoot down that alien and it explodes, well, there's plenty of fire there left in the sky for you to run into. So even if it's dead, it doesn't mean it won't harm you. This is a really fun game with even cutscenes every 5 or 6 levels or so, and I really like how you can clearly make out that that is Earth. I also really like the 1812 overture they have playing in the background. It's probably some of the best royalty-free music the 5200 could have pulled off. If you have a friend that's willing to play, check out Ball Blazer, where it's an arena sports game made by LucasArts with a cool 3D view where you could pick up a ball and run it through the goal on the other side of the screen. The action button also allows you to steal the ball from your opponent or throw the ball through the goal lines. Also, sometimes the goal lines move back and forth, so you're going to have to get pretty tricky with this one. I really like how the graphics are just 3D. I mean, this was a massive step up from the Atari 2600, and this looks pretty incredible. And it's definitely fun to play with 2 players. However, for gameplay for this, I could only just sit there and play with myself, because I don't have many people that want to play with me. It's a sad life. No, because I'm forced to play with myself. For my 3D games, I'm going with Battlezone, where you drive a tank around and shoot down other tanks and blow them all to heck. If you happen to get shot by some of the tanks that are trying to shoot at you, well then your whole screen just cracks up. I thought you would just blow up and die in some type of fiery blast, but apparently your windshield just breaks. Also, there is some debris left over from some of the other tanks that you already exploded, so if you happen to run into it, your windshield will break again, causing death, I assume. There's also some type of weird space alien saucers on the screen. They're really hard to kill, and it's kind of confusing what they're even doing. In the arcade, this was all done with vector graphics. That means perfectly straight lines in any direction, and it looked super impressive. On the 5200, even though it still looks sort of impressive for what the system could handle, it doesn't have the same effects. It's somewhat lackluster in its gameplay and in its overall aesthetics. Heck, there was even a version of Jungle Hunt for the Atari 5200, but somehow they took a wrong path with this one. Graphically, looks pretty impressive, but the gameplay is very off. Trying to get your timing down on these vines is darn near impossible. Also, if you hold down the action button just a millisecond too long, you immediately fall off the vine, which is just plain awful. Another thing that's awful is just the overall feel and difficulty of this game. Really, trying to swing from vine to vine does not need to be this difficult and painfully slow. You have to wait for the absolute perfect time. Eventually, you do clear this level, and then you jump into the water with all the alligators, and trying to stab them dead is also super difficult here. I can't even get past the second stage in Jungle Hunt for the 5200, and I've beaten this game on like every system imaginable. It manages to be even harder than the original arcade version, and that's very frustrating. For all you fans of Berserk out there, check out K-Razy Shootout instead. I know the Atari 5200 did have its own version of Berserk, but I think this is a far more interesting game. Instead of just trying to rush off to the next level, you have to stay behind and shoot all of the evil robots before moving along. And sometimes it gets really difficult as they seem to be quite a bit smarter and they actually shoot back at you. Also, you have to watch for their spawn points because you don't want to be on one of them when you polish off one of these robots because they can spawn right on top of you. You can even set up some combos because when you shoot them, again, they explode and fire off different pieces into the other robots, causing them to explode. This makes for some very intense gameplay and makes you really want to push that top score to all new levels. And also, when you die, there's a little animated stick figure that seems to walk along the bottom of the screen and then falls over dead with an erection, as if he OD'd on Viagra or something. This is a really cool version of Berserk that I hope you guys have played. Montezuma's Revenge isn't just what happens to you when you drink the water in Mexico. It's also a screen-by-screen action platformer where you have to maneuver around the world, collect keys, open doors, avoid enemies, and even ride on conveyor belts, slide down pulls, and avoid everything that's out to kill you. And let's face it, everything is always out to kill you in this style game, and you will be dying again and again, jumping all the way back to the beginning of the game and then trying to do it all but just a little bit better. Also, what hurts you is fall damage, so if you fall from too great of a height, of course you will lose a life. Luckily, they do give you plenty of lives, but it doesn't help when you die every 15 seconds. This is a really good game, but unfortunately it really starts poking holes in the massive flaws of the Atari 5200 joystick, which just really isn't accurate enough to play this game the way it's intended to be played, and it will leave you breaking the controller, which tend to happen all the time back then. I mean, these things broke non-stop. They were really chintzy put together, and yeah, you're gonna break a couple on playing this game alone. Kicks is one of my favorite puzzle games ever made, and the Atari 5200 had a great version of this. If you happen to play in an arcade way back in the day, one of those CZ truck stop ones, you could even play different versions of this game where you unlock pictures of girls wearing nothing behind the screen. Sadly, the 5200 doesn't have that going on for it, but it does have all of the tight gameplay. And if you let go of the trigger button while you're drawing a line, you will nearly immediately blow up. So just hold in that trigger button at all times while you're playing this game. Of course, there is this evil thing in the center of the screen where it tries to kill you as you draw the boxes that you need to draw. There's also little sparks going around the outside that will hunt you down, so you have to be drawing boxes when they pass by. This whole game setup is totally inventive with what they can do with such primitive graphics, and the gameplay is tremendously awesome, and especially gets interesting as they start adding more and more kicks, which is those creatures in the middle of the screen, and more sparks as you play through the game. So it won't be long before it just becomes completely unplayable, but you're gonna have an absolute blast until you get to that point, trying to get your top score. Vanguard was always one of my favorite 2600 games, so when I started to play it on the 5200, I knew exactly what to expect, with slightly better graphics and sound effects that were about the same. I think the 5200 used the same sound chip as the 2600, and this really let me down on a lot of levels. Also, I think the 7800 also used the same sound chip, so you know that Atari really didn't care about the sound. It was all about the gameplay, and the side-scrolling here is actually pretty darn quick, even sometimes a little too quick, giving you almost no time to react about the different things that are trying to shoot you down. Sometimes you move to some of these diagonal levels where it's just about moving up and down and shooting as fast as possible in order to clear it. This is also one of those games that actually has a boss at the end of it, and you have to try and blow him up and completely save the universe from the evil creature thing that you're trying to kill. Also, Also, there's some music here when you pick up an energy tank. It plays one of the theme songs from Flash Gordon the movie. Even if it completely rips it off, it's still awesome to hear and gives you invincibility to run through everything, all guns blazing. But it turns off your guns. You just smash into stuff. Which leads me to Buck Rogers, made by Sega. It's one of those 3D style shooters. Now, normally in this type of shooter, you push down to go up and you push up to go down, just like you were controlling a real plane. But not here. It's not inverted at all, and that's a bit of a bummer. But you really don't have to go up and down that much. It's all about moving left and right here as you're basically piloting like skis, going through a slalom. As you pass through these gates, you can engage your warp, launching you to the next level. There's also a really cool thing here where you just hold down the fire button, continuously shooting really fast, so you don't really need turbos, probably because they didn't want you to break these flimsy controllers. Now the story of Buck Rogers traveling from the past through time, ending up in the future, and trying to make sense of his new world that he finds himself in kind of reminds me of the situation that I'm in right now while playing the 5200, from the position of being way in the future. Because I knew that the 5200 didn't even stand a chance. Most of his games were just upgraded versions of the 2600, and it didn't have the backwards compatibility to play those original 2600 games. Also, knowing that the sound effects were going to be awful and the controllers break nearly the second you pick them up makes trying to own one of these very difficult. However, third parties do create controllers that hold up really well, and I really love playing games with the trackball of this system, even if I didn't talk about any of them today. Now, the 5200 did a couple things right, but what it mostly did was maybe even caused a video game crash itself, because people just got fed up of all the bullcrap that was going on with video games. That, and if you add to it the glutton of game consoles that tend to be out there, part of which Atari was itself responsible for, and all the discounted video games that just weren't selling, and of course there was a massive reckoning right around the corner. Playing the system today in my pajamas next to my floor model RCA TV might not be what the future or even present looks like, but it certainly sends me way back to the past, to a much simpler time. And I think sometimes we all need a little bit of that. But of course, that's just my opinion. Thanks for watching. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. I had a great time making it, and I really like doing a showcase of different consoles, showing you what they were all about. And most people didn't have a 5200 because it was an absolute miserable failure. Of course, it's moderately worth owning today just for that beautiful trackball controller, which someday I'm sure I'll get into. But if you have your favorite game that I didn't cover on the 5200, let me know what it is in the comment box down below. And until later, I will see you again, guys.